Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Fusion Deck User in a different Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Quick update. What If Reborn as Gohan in future timeline will be going on hold soon, since we've nearly caught up with the author. So now, I need your help picking the next project for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these three fanfics. What if Transmigrated in One Piece and becoming a Marine? What if Ichigo awoke his powers to save his mother? What if Transmigrated into a nightmare mode Dragon Ball world? Please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next. I'll take the top pick and start working on that as the series next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 21, The Opening of the Representative War. The next day. Hikaru was feeling a little groggy. He had stayed up too late last night, making several adjustments to his deck in preparation for this duel. Honestly, even if he lost to Jaden, it wouldn't be anything to be ashamed of. After all, Jaden was the original protagonist. But if you're going to duel, you have to aim for victory. Even if his opponent had supernatural abilities like psychic powers, the Supreme King's might, or the power of darkness, Hikaru refused to back down. I duel to win. Yua across from him, Jaden also looked a little drowsy, yawning. Last night, not only had Cyrus and Chumley dragged him into deck discussions, but even Avian and Winged Kuribo had been pestering him, pointing at cards in his deck and offering their own opinions. They all knew that Hikaru was not an easy opponent to deal with, especially since the two of them had traveled to another dimension together and dueled side by side. They had at least some understanding of each other's thoughts, which only made the duel even more difficult. Targeting, understanding, predicting, calculating, these were all crucial aspects of dueling. When dueling a stranger, with no knowledge of their habits, you could only rely on instinct and intellect to anticipate their next move. But when dueling a familiar opponent, a friend, even if you didn't know what cards they had in hand, you could still make a rough guess about their tactics. For example, if Hikaru were to duel Seto Kaiba, he wouldn't even need to open his eyes to know that Kaiba definitely had 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons and a polymerization in his hand. And that kind of familiarity only made dueling more difficult. Be careful, Jaden. That guy, Hikari, harbors an incomprehensibly vast power. He's not an opponent you can take lightly, give it your all. As Jaden and Hikaru greeted each other and the Academy's medical staff scanned their decks for any irregularities, the Phantom of Avian appeared beside Jaden, whispering a warning. Korii, Korii. At the same time, a floating, winged Kuribo appeared beside Jaden's face, cheering him on. Jaden was long accustomed to interacting with spirits. Hearing his two partners' words, he grinned excitedly and said to them, "Yeah, that's exactly what makes this even more fun." Meanwhile, Hikaru was also checking his deck. After carefully going through it twice, he finally felt at ease. "Who is that?" On the second floor of the duel arena, a tall, handsome young man asked in a low voice while watching the two duelists. He was the pride of Duel Academy, the undisputed king of Obelisk Blue, the top duelist of the third-year students, and the Academy's strongest duelist, known as Kaiser, Zane Truesdale. Beside him, a blonde girl heard his question. Resting her arm on the railing, she furrowed her brows slightly. "He's Hikaru, a first year from RA Yellow. I heard he's a friend of Jaden's. Last time Jaden went to another dimension, he brought him along." There was a hint of complaint and resentment in her tone, as if she was displeased that she hadn't been invited. Her name was Alexis Rhodes. Because her brother was friends with Zane Truesdale, she often joined him in searching for her missing sibling, making the two of them fairly close acquaintances. In terms of both looks and figures, she was an undeniable beauty. Her long, slender, porcelain-white legs often attracted the gazes of the boys around her. There was even an incident where the captain of the tennis club publicly confessed to her. That said, for some reason, the boys she was actually familiar with, like Jaden and Kaiser, were completely uninterested in her appearance or figure. Instead, they were far more curious about her dueling skills. Are you talking about the partner who went to another dimension with Jaden? Zane's expression suddenly darkened considerably. Back then, Atticus and I were also partners exploring another dimension. He recalled the past. Brother. At the sound of his brother's name, Alexis fell silent in sorrow. It's all right. One day, we'll find him. Zane shook his head. Now, let's watch the duel. Did Jaden choose that partner? Surely, it will bring us an exciting duel. Both sides, prepare yourselves. On the field, Professor Growler raised his hand and shouted, I declare the start of the final representative battle. Duel. ×2. Jaden LP, 4000. Hikaru LP, 4000. Oh. The cheering from the spectators erupted immediately. Come on, Jaden. Watch out for Hikaru's fusion. Hikaru, bring honor to our fusion club. On both sides of the audience, distinctly separated by color, sat students in red, yellow, and blue uniforms, while others wore pure purple. Although there were far fewer students in purple uniforms compared to the normal ones, their shouts were no less loud. They had all, to one degree or another, conversed with Hikaru. They weren't exactly his best friends, but then again they were definitely on good terms as members. Today, they had all set aside their individual dorm identities and sat together as one. The members of the Fusion Club and others enthusiastically cheered on Hikaru, the representative of the Fusion Club. Among the many purple uniformed students, the only one, Bastion, under pressure, sat on that side, wiping the cold sweat from his forehead while cheering for Hikaru. How strange, why do the looks coming from the other side seem as if they're saying I'm a traitor? Bastion mused in bewilderment. After thinking for a while, he finally came to himself, forget it, whatever. Go for it, Hikaru, win it for us. Wow, such passion. Jaden was taken aback by the students directly opposite him. Hikaru, you are really popular. Ha, of course. I am the purest fusion duelist. Hikaru laughed heartily, feeling that his hard work in the Fusion Club had not been in vain. In the entire Fusion Club, who could fuse more than him? Well then, I'll take the initiative. Hikaru didn't even bother with courtesy toward Jaden. Since I can go first, who needs to flip a coin? My turn, I draw a card. He scanned his hand. Unfortunately, he didn't draw any ready fusion or ready style fusion, not even a card from the Flame Swordsman domain. However, his hand did contain other cards that could be used, and they were quite useful. I set one card, and end my turn. Only one set card? What an ordinary turn. It feels like he's going to suffer a loss for nothing. And that opponent is Jaden. He might get OTK'd. The students of the Fusion Club were somewhat worried. Meanwhile, the students on the other side were not any happier. Be careful, Jaden, watch out for his facedown card, it's definitely a trap. Yeah, Jaden, it might be Flame Sword's dance. Chumley also shouted. Jaden drew a card, glanced at the field, and didn't rush. Then, I'll normal summon Elemental Hero Wildheart. Elemental Hero Wildheart, level 4 Earth Warrior 1500 ATK. Ah, Wildheart won't be affected by trap cards. Chumley, who aimed to be a card designer, immediately recognized it. That's it, Jaden, now test it. Jaden decisively nodded. I attacked directly with Wildheart. Wait. Hikaru swiftly flipped over his facedown card. Quick play spell card, Scapegoat. With this card's effect, I can special summon 4 level 1 sheep tokens, each with 0 attack and defense, from my side of the field. In the next instant, 4 3D images of yellow, blue, pink, and orange fluffy sheep appeared in front of Hikaru. The battle continues, destroy 1 sheep token. The Wildheart spun and casually chopped down a pink sheep token. Ha! Why Scapegoat? No way, could Hikaru have not a good hand? Are the 4 sheep tokens just for stalling? The Fusion Club didn't see a fusion summon, but instead saw Scapegoat, making them a bit tense. Great, Jaden, it looks like Hikaru has a bad hand. Go for it, Jaden. Jaden's fan club cheered. Strange, that Hikaru doesn't seem like someone who has a bad hand? Zane frowned in confusion. Jaden looks really nervous? Jaden. Be careful. Meanwhile, unknown to everyone, the avian appeared beside Jaden and urgently shouted at him, "It's a level 1 monster." Ah, I know. Jaden's face turned serious, showing no hint of smugness. Then I'll set 2 cards and end my turn. Ha! My turn, draw. Hikaru took the card from the far left of his hand. Now, I activate Metamorphosis. Oh no! The avian gasped. It's Thousand Eyes Restrict. Chapter 22, Testing and Interaction. Metamorphosis. You must tribute a monster on your field to activate this card. Special summon a fusion monster from your extra deck that is the same level as the tribute monster. I'll tribute the blue sheep on my field. I fusion monster, Thousand Eyes Restrict. The blue sheep's body emitted a violent collision, followed by a twisting motion. Its body began to crack apart, gradually sprouting eyes, appearing distorted and disgusting. Thousand Eyes Restrict, Level 1 DARK Spellcaster 0 ATK 0 Def. Oh my god. What? What is that? What a disgusting monster. That's Thousand Eyes Restrict, the legendary monster, Mr. Pegasus's card. Wow, can you really use a token as fusion material to summon a monster of that level? Soon, some members of the Fusion Club recognized the monster and realized their previous worries had been unnecessary. This was a legendary monster. Thousand Eyes Restrict? Zane stepped forward. I remember, this monster's effect is. I'll activate the effect of Thousand Eyes Restrict. Once per turn, I can equip one monster on your field as an equip card and gain that monster's attack and defense. Thousand Eye Restrict's eyes glowed with eerie purple light, casting it upon the Wildheart. A moment later, Wildheart screamed, turned into a shadow, and merged with Thousand Eyes Restrict's body. Thousand Eyes Restrict's ATK, 0-1500. Oh no! This way, Jaden's open to a direct attack. While everyone around him was panicking, Hikaru noticed that Jaden wasn't worried at all. Instead, he seemed even more fired up. A face-down card? Unlike Hikaru, Jaden was known in people's minds as the fusion symbol, but in the original, heroes were more of a deck that worked back and forth with spell and trap cards, and it wasn't until Space Hero Neos arrived that fusion deck became what it is today. So, it wasn't surprising for Jaden to set a card. After all, he had even used Sakuretsu armor before. I'll attack directly with Thousand Eyes Restrict. Hikaru didn't continue playing but directly attacked with Thousand Eyes Restrict. I activate my trap card, a hero emerges. Seeing Hikaru's attack, Jaden immediately flipped over his face-down card. It can be activated when an opponent's monster declares an attack. The opponent chooses one of my hand cards, and if it's a monster, I can special summon it. Oh. So that's what this is, then, you must have a monster in your hand? Guess. Then it's the one in the middle. Jaden looked at the card in the middle, grinned, and happily revealed it. The card in the middle is Elemental Hero Sparkman. BZZZZZ. A flash of intense electricity lit up, and a warrior charged onto the field, crackling with electricity. Elemental Hero Sparkman, Level 4 Light Warrior 1600 ATK. I see. Well then, I'll retract my attack and end my turn. Hikaru, seeing that the opponent summoned a higher attack monster, didn't panic. Rather, he simply set another card. Let's end it here. He appeared remarkably calm. That was an exciting clash. Although the attack points weren't as high as in the previous duel, every move was well thought out, and neither Jaden nor Hikaru seemed surprised by their opponent's actions. Bastion, watching from the stands, took a deep breath and remarked, both of them have already planned out various scenarios in advance. No matter what the opponent plays, they'll both have an advantage. He realized that, as someone who only targeted specific cards, he probably wasn't as skilled as the two on the field. My turn. After drawing a card, Jaden was once again guided by the avian. Jaden, if you don't solve Thousand Eyes Restrict this turn, it will swallow another monster next turn. You must figure out a way to deal with it now. Ah, I understand. Jaden didn't hesitate and immediately activated the card he drew. I'll start with the spell card, Pot of Greed. He activated the Forbidden card. Hikaru looked at Jaden playing this card and felt a bit envious. You bought so many cards in your past, why the heck didn't you buy a Pot of Greed? Hikaru rebuked his past self inwardly. Next, I'll flip over my facedown card, Polymerization. As expected, he set a spell card to activate a Hero Emerges effect. I'll fuse the Sparkman on the field and the Clayman in my hand. I fusion summon Thunder Giant. TZZZZZT. Clay rose from the ground, continuously merging into the thunder, and soon, a towering warrior crackling with electricity appeared. Elemental Hero Thunder Giant, Level 6 Light Warrior 2400 ATK. Thunder Giant's effect allows me to discard one card from my hand to destroy a monster on the field with lower attack than it. The monster I destroy is, of course, Thousand Eyes Restrict. Lightning struck down, and the hero defeated the evil god. Ha! Why not have Thunder Giant attack directly? On the stands, Cyrus asked a rather silly question. Thousand Eyes Restrict has the effect of preventing battle destruction when it's equipped with a monster. Chumley, who was very familiar with this card's effect, explained to Cyrus. Then you could use two monsters to attack and destroy Thousand Eyes Restrict, right? That would deal more damage. Maybe, but in Jaden's eyes, it might be more dangerous to leave a material on Hikaru's side than to deal damage. Also, I remember that with Thousand Eyes Restrict on the field, other monsters can't attack. So, this was the best choice. Ah! I see now. Thunder Giant casually electrocuted a sheep, but Jaden didn't end his turn just yet. I activate the continuous spell, Mirage of Nightmare. Then, I'll set a card and end my turn. Hikaru squinted, watching the continuous spell on the field, and sighed. Another forbidden drawing spell. Past me could have gotten powerful cards, instead of buying useless stuff. What a pain. My turn, I draw. During your standby phase, the effect of Mirage of Nightmare activates, and I draw up to 4 cards in my hand. Then, I flip over my facedown card, Quick Play Spell, Emergency Provisions, sending one spell or trap card from the field to the graveyard and restoring life points equal to the number of cards sent to the graveyard multiplied by 1000. Jaden, LP, 4000 5000. Amazing. You've replenished your hand after fusion summoning and even regained life points. Jaden is truly amazing. In the stands, Banner, holding a cat, stroked it thoughtfully. Ah, whether it's Jaden or Hikaru, I want to cheer for them both, but it's so hard to choose. Should Jaden win, or Hikaru? Go, Hikaru. Show that red dorm kid how great fusion can be. Don't give up. Many students in the audience were cheering for Hikaru. After all, his fusion monster had just been destroyed, but Hikaru was completely unfazed. In return, he smiled and glanced at the card he had drawn, then looked up at Jaden. Jaden, through trap, spell, and monster effects, you've destroyed Thousand Eyes Restrict, but now, all you have left on the field is a single 2480k monster. Jaden gulped upon hearing this. Yes, even though 2480k seemed high to others, he knew very well that a single Thunder Giant wouldn't be enough to stop what was coming. Then, I activate the continuous spell, Flame Sword's Realm. Finally, it's here. Flame Sword's Realm. Seeing this card, Avian solemnly turned to Jaden. The real duel is just beginning, Jaden. Ah, I understand. Jaden said enthusiastically, this is getting more and more exciting. Chapter 23, Strategy and Progress. At first glance, the current situation didn't seem favorable for Hikaru. Jaden's hand had 4 cards, and he had a monster on the field with 2480k. Hikaru had 5 cards in hand, but only some leftover derivatives and a facedown card on the field. But all of this changed after Hikaru activated a spell card. Blazing flames surrounded Hikaru, and everyone who knew this card and had seen Hikaru use it cheered. It seemed the long wait was finally over, and the counterattack moment had arrived. Continuous spell card, Flame Swordsrealm's effect allows me to send a monster in face-up attack position from my hand or field to the graveyard, then special summon one Flame Swordsman from my extra deck as fusion summon. Hikaru revealed a monster from his hand. I'll send Gigatech Wolf to the graveyard and perform fusion summon. Here it comes, Flame Swordsman. Boom! The fire intensified, and a heroic warrior stepped through the flames. Ha, finally my turn to appear. Flame Swordsman, level 5 Fire Warrior 1800 ATK. No need for fusion materials, fusion summon can be performed directly. Here it is. Hikaru's fusion deck. The fusion group began to cheer. It's not over yet. Next, I immediately activate another continuous spell card, over future fusion. Hikaru quickly revealed another card from his hand. This card's two effects can each be used once per turn. Following its effect, I'll first show the fusion monster from my extra deck, Labyrinth Tank. Then, I'll send Cannon Soldier from my deck to the graveyard. This turn, I can't special summon Cannon Soldier or use its effect. Then, I immediately activate the second effect of over future fusion. Once per turn, I can banish monsters from my graveyard as fusion materials to fusion summon a Dark Attribute Machine-type fusion monster. I'll banish Cannon Soldier and Gigatech Wolf from the graveyard in fusion summon, Labyrinth Tank. Back again. A handy little tank. Labyrinth Tank, level 70 ARK Machine 2400 ATK. Oh. Now its ATK is equal to Thunder Giants. Hikaru looked at his facedown card. The card he said last turn was the Salamandra with Chain, which if activated now, could boost the Flame Swordsman's ATK and deal more damage. However, he didn't plan on doing that. Dueling is an interactive strategy, and even though his hand didn't contain any monsters earlier, he wasn't in a rush to use his cards. Gradually dismantling the opponent's strategy, step by step, was what he thought was the best tactic in this world. There was no other choice. If this were his deck in his world, he would have already gone through various fusion summons and used them all up. Since there's no limit to the number of cards, he would simply overpower and win much more easily. But there was a challenge in this world, since over future fusion only gave him fusion and fusion monsters, not destiny heroes or lower level fusion monsters. These powerful fusions couldn't even be used. So, slowly dismantling the opponent's field, using existing cards, and forcing the opponent to make moves was his best option against Jaden. Now, battle. The ATK is the same. Jaden said fearlessly, "Are you going to activate your facedown?" No need. I attack with Labyrinth Tank, and simultaneously, I activate Flame Swordsrealm's first effect. Once per turn, when a monster declares an attack, I can activate it. I'll target one warrior-type monster on my field. Until the end of the turn, that monster's ATK decreases by 1000, while all other monsters on my field gain 1000 ATK. Flame Swordsman, ATK, 1800-800. Labyrinth Tank, ATK, 2400-3400. Now it exceeds Thunder Giants. Jaden braced himself with his hand, trying to block the barrage. Now, I attack with Flame Swordsman. Jaden, LP, 5000, 4000, 3200. A steady counterattack. On the stands, Zane nodded gently after watching Hikaru's counterattack. As the strongest duelist of the school year storyline, and someone who had once defeated Jaden, Hikaru knew Jaden's dueling style very well. He was passionate and always went all in, yet he could chain together moves beautifully. At first glance, it might seem reckless, but in reality, every action was well thought out and prepared. When dueling Jaden, you must never be deceived by his seemingly carefree demeanor, thinking he will act impulsively or lose his cool. The best strategy is to gradually pressure Jaden, forcing him to struggle with dismantling the opponent's field, and then strike decisively when the moment arrives, just like he was doing now. Especially because it seemed like Jaden had become significantly stronger since then. Hikaru wiped the sweat from his forehead. He felt a long-lost excitement, the pure joy of playing cards again. In his world, playing cards was truly just a pastime, either playing against an opponent with no hand traps, continuously making moves, or surrendering immediately when the opponent made their plays. He hadn't experienced such a pure, straightforward battle in a long time, particularly with images around him almost seeming tangible, making his heart race. Is this the pure joy of the game? And to think, the current Jaden was still far from his final form. The turn is over, the two monsters' ATK return to normal. Jaden seemed to be affected as well. He drew a card, looking at the picture on it, his face lighted up with excitement. As expected, when dueling you, I have to use this card. Oh. Back when we were dueling in the alternate dimension, we won thanks to you pulling out this card. That's when I realized you think ahead more than I do. Jaden smiled brightly. Now, I finally have the chance to face you head on. I activate the spell card, Miracle Fusion. Miracle Fusion? Seems like he got the idea from Hikaru? Hikaru was surprised as well. Where did you get that from? I pulled it from a pack at Tomesan's shop, and just happened to get it. So rich, so lucky, so damn lucky. While Hikaru was about to run out of money for bread. Then, based on Miracle Fusion's effect, I'll banish Avian and Wildheart from the graveyard to perform a fusion summon. Graveyard Fusion. Seems like he learned it from Hikaru. I fusion summon, Elemental Hero Wild Wingman. Elemental Hero Wild Wingman. Level 8 Earth Warrior 1900 ATK. Avian, that was the card discarded by Thunder Giant last turn. Hikaru had previously checked Jaden's graveyard, so this didn't surprise him. According to Wild Wingman's effect, I discard one card from my hand and destroy one spell or trap card on the field. I choose your facedown card. Hearing this, Hikaru immediately flipped over his trap. Then, I activate my facedown, Salamandra with Chain, equipping it to Flame Swordsman. Based on its effect, it boosts Flame Swordsman's ATK, and then I'll change one of your effect monsters to facedown defense. I'll cover Wild Wingman. No problem. Jaden didn't mind at all. Go, Wild Wingman. The chain covered in flames wrapped around Wild Wingman, and he howled as he shot countless feathers, colliding with the chains. In the end, Wild Wingman was covered, the chain shattered by the feathers. So, it was that facedown card. Jaden was not at all surprised when he saw it. You gave up on dealing more damage to me because you didn't want to waste the powerful effect of your facedown card. Just like how you stopped me from using Sakuretsu armor before. Heh, that's right, Jaden. You learned fast. Hikaru said with a smile. And now, you have no protective cards left on the field. Jaden's eyes lit up, and next to him, the black-winged hero floating in the air nodded in agreement. Then, I activate the field spell, Fusion Gate. Jaden placed the card into the Dual Discs field slot, and immediately, the entire duel arena began to change colors, gradually turning into a pure black sky, with only some green grids showing any color. The materials for the fusion are Elemental Hero and Wind Attribute Monster. Even a facedown monster can be used as material. This is fusion. Jaden shouted excitedly. I activate the effective Fusion Gate, and fuse the Elemental Hero Wild Wingman on the field, and this, second Avian in my hand. The second Avian. The dark-colored, fierce, and fully unheroic sprite flew out of the card under Hikaru's gaze and fused with the monster on the field. I fusion summon, come forth, my old friend, Elemental Hero Great Tornado. A roaring gale swept through. A massive tornado engulfed the entire duel arena. Many students started holding onto nearby objects to keep themselves grounded, while some standing girls struggled to shield their skirts, letting out surprised shrieks. Within the howling wind, a battle-worn warrior slowly revealed himself, tossing his cloak aside and glaring coldly at his opponent. Elemental Hero Great Tornado, Level 8 WAND Warrior 2800 ATK. The effect of Great Tornado: when this card is fusion summoned, all monsters on the opponent's field have their ATK and def reduced by half. Flame Swordsman, ATK, 1800-900. Labyrinth Tank, ATK, 2400-1200. Wow! What a powerful monster! Goodness, even 5,000 life points would have to bow down before him, right? Battle, Great Tornado, attack Flame Swordsman. The gale sucked and blew. Flame Swordsman struggled for a moment, but was kicked to pieces by Great Tornado. However, afterward, Great Tornado glanced at Hikaru, casually waved his hand, and didn't direct the attack at him. Hikaru, LP, 2100. End turn. Hikaru rubbed his shoulder. Avian had talked tough, but even so, it wasn't too bad. It hadn't really dealt any heavy blows, so it didn't hurt in the least. In turn, Hikaru's competitive spirit had been thoroughly ignited. He drew a card from his deck, glanced at it, and couldn't help but burst into laughter. Jaden, I admit, you've become even stronger since then. But on the road of fusion, I will never lose. Final turn. Chapter 24, The Final Round. Hearing the declaration of final turn, all the spectators became revved up. They were greatly curious about why Hikaru could be so confident, calling it the final turn. Interesting, Hikaru, he's full of confidence. Zane crossed his arms, watching him with a gleam of joy in his eyes. More and more excellent duelists were appearing in the academy, and though he was about to graduate, he still felt pleased. Although Jaden had already begun showing some talent, through his eyes, Jaden was still far from his level. Now another person of his interest showed up. How could that not excite him? The thrill of the cards was taking over. But, with insufficient hand resources and all the monsters on the field having their ATK reduced by half, how can he possibly turn the situation around? Alexis's question was the same as that of most of the students. With not enough cards in hand, monsters having their ATK halved, and trap cards destroyed, it seemed like a dire situation. In such a case, even fusion seemed almost useless. After all, even if he wanted to fusion summon the ultimate ancient gear golem, looking at the field in hand, it seemed he wouldn't have enough resources. Albeit Hikaru knew better than anyone his deck didn't even have ancient gear golem. It was impossible to fusion summon the ultimate golem. Jaden, Hikaru's field looks awful. If you can just hold on, you've won for sure. Chumley cheered Jaden on. At this point, could this guy possibly have other tricks? Even elemental hero Great Tornado couldn't understand. How was Hikaru going to defeat Jaden in such a desperate situation? It wasn't that he was boasting, but with his evolved form, he was confident he could defeat even Blue Eye's ultimate dragon. Even though the effect had already been activated, the Labyrinth tank, with just 1200 ATK, was nowhere near his level. Jaden didn't understand either. Yet, the thrilled beat of his heart made him look forward to Hikaru's next move. Alright, bring it on, Hikaru. Let me see your fusion. Okay, Jaden, let me tell you why you'll lose. It's because you're challenging me in my area of expertise. I activate the spell card, Lullaby of Obedience. That card. The students who had seen the duel yesterday immediately recognized the card. I pay 2,000 life points, I declare the name of a card. If that card is in your deck, you must choose, add it to my hand or special summon it to my field. Hikaru, LP, 2100. Jaden was confused. At this point, why pay 2,000 life points? So, what are you declaring? Elemental Hero Burstinatrix. Hikaru smiled and pointed to Jaden's duel disc. I've checked your graveyard, and since you haven't used Burstinatrix since the duel started, she must be deep in your deck. Ah, that's right. Jaden pulled out his deck, checked, and found Burstinatrix buried at the bottom. He took her out and threw her to Hikaru. Once Hikaru got the card, he didn't rush to use it. He then activated the effect of his Flame Swords realm on the field. I'll send Labyrinth Tank to the graveyard and fusion summon the second Flame Swordsman from my extra deck. I'm back. Although one of the Flame Swordsmen was a regular card and the other was a spirit possessing the card, the Flame Swordsman spirit could travel between the two cards. Now, with the opportunity to appear, he cheered and puffed out his chest towards the Dark Flare Knight in his deck, not on the field. The Labyrinth Tank's ATK and def are reduced, and leaving it on the field would just make it a target. Using it as fusion material is definitely the right move, Zane nodded. But, what did it mean? Now, the final preparation, Jaden. Hikaru pointed to the continuous spell on his side. I activate the effect of Overfuture Fusion. Jaden froze. That card is supposed to fusion summon Labyrinth Tank, right? He was a tad slow to react. According to the effect of Overfuture Fusion, I reveal a fusion monster from my extra deck and send one of its fusion materials to the graveyard. This turn, I can't special summon that monster or activate its effects. Hikaru pulled out his extra deck, looked for a card, and smiled as he spoke. What I'm showing is this one. He raised a purple fusion monster card for everyone to see as clearly as possible. Ah! What? Holy cow! Jaden! Even Zane took a few steps forward in shock and exclaimed, "It's that card?" Jaden slowly opened his mouth and then speechlessly revealed an excited expression, Flame Wingman. Yes, the fusion card Hikaru showed was Flame Wingman. I send Avian from my deck to the graveyard. Hikaru opened his deck and showed Avian from his deck before placing it in the graveyard. Seeing this, Great Tornado felt an indescribable unease. It's over. He'll be hit from the side by his own move. You've been carrying this card all along? Jaden suddenly realized. Ah. Yesterday, during the duel, you told a senpai you would use this card to fuse my monster. That's right. Since I returned from the dimension, I've always had this card in my deck. In fact, it was that day when Super Fusion fused two elemental heroes from his deck into this one. Jaden gasped, it's not just fusion materials, even fusion monsters. Hikaru spread his arms wide and boldly proclaimed, fusion is the noblest form of summoning in the world. As a duelist who pursues the ultimate fusion, as a member of the fusion army, as a fusion duelist. Not just fusion materials, but even fusion monsters must be fully mastered. Now, I normal summon Burstinatrix. And, sorry, Jaden, I win. Fusion spell, Miracle Fusion. From there, no explanation was needed. The fusion materials were Burstinatrix and Avian, while a winged warrior with a gigantic dragon head growing from his right arm descended into the blazing fire domain. Elemental Hero Flame Wingman, level 6 WAND Warrior 2100 ATK. When it destroys an opponent's monster by battle, it deals damage equal to that monster's ATK to the opponent. The Flame Sword's Realm domain can reduce the ATK of a warrior-type monster on the field, raising all other monsters' ATK by 1000 points. The attack of Flame Swordsman is 1800. 800 and 3100, a total of 3900, while Jaden's life points are 3200. Although Jaden was not at his full strength and was just a newly enrolled protagonist, there was no doubt Hikaru had one. Battle phase. Flame Wingman attacks, activating the effect of Flame Sword's Realm. Hikaru wore a smile on his face. Defeating the real protagonist, for him, was quite the challenge. Seeing his favorite monster charging at him, Jaden didn't regret not using Wild Wingman to destroy the Flame Sword's Realm earlier. That would have greatly increased his chances of winning. Right now, he only had one thought. What a fun duel! He happily raised his fist, facing his favorite monster. Come on, Hikaru! Wah! Fusion! 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 Hikaru! Hikaru! The duel image slowly faded. The field became bright again. A thunderous cheer and applause echoed through the duel arena. They had witnessed a true duel, one with no loser. No one could have imagined that, in the end, it would be hero versus hero. The winner, Hikaru. Chapter 25, Gift Card. After the duel ended, even Professor Growler, who had always looked down on Jaden, didn't make any sarcastic remarks. Instead, he happily joined in the applause. A spectacular duel always resonates with duelists, of course. Another important reason was that the principal had already eagerly stepped forward to congratulate Hikaru and encourage him to keep winning. That was truly an excellent duel. I watched the entire match between you two. The principal smiled while clapping. Jaden, Hikaru, your passionate dueling spirit even made my blood boil a little. Jaden, though you lost, don't be discouraged. I believe today's performance has already lived up to Zane's recommendation of you back then. Oh, right, that happened. Jaden suddenly remembered and looked into the distance, spotting Zane, the Kaiser. He quickly waved and called out an apology. After all, he was able to stand on this representative matched duel stage because of Zane's recommendation. Ha! Zane chuckled. You're actually laughing, Zane? Alexis asked in surprise. Even though Jaden lost. Originally, the Academy representative match should have featured the strongest student duelist, Zane Truesdale. However, since the Northern Branch chose a freshman, even though Principal Shepard was desperate to win, he couldn't just bully them. So he let Zane recommend a student. Naturally, Zane chose Jaden, a promising freshman he had once dueled and met briefly. Though not on his level yet, Zane believed Jaden's potential was extraordinary. But now that he had lost, his reputation might even take a hit. It doesn't matter. Zane smiled again. A duelist no less talented than Jaden, perhaps even purer in their passion for dueling, has appeared. Isn't that something to be excited about? Seeing that familiar duel addict expression on Zane's face, Alexis could only sigh again. Why are all the men around me like this? Hikaru, do you have confidence in defeating your upcoming opponent? Principal Shepard kindly held Hikaru's hand and asked warmly. If Hikaru hadn't known the truth, he might have thought the principal was purely concerned about the Academy's honor. That depends on the situation. Hikaru didn't give a straightforward answer. I can only say I'll do my best. After all, duels are ever-changing. Until the last moment, no one can guarantee the outcome. Oh? Principal Shepard was a bit surprised by Hikaru's response. He had expected a young duelist who had just won to be full of arrogance, but to his surprise, Hikaru remained composed. Besides, based on his experience, both Jaden and Hikaru seemed like duelists destined to win. Looking at Jaden and Hikaru chatting and laughing, along with the approaching Bastion and the others, he nodded in approval. Stay humble in victory, and resilient in defeat. It seems the Academy's future rests in the hands of these students. In truth, despite defeating Jaden, Hikaru knew well that, at this stage, Jaden was still quite ignorant. Though he was unmatched among first years, at this point, he had once been utterly crushed by Zane, practically getting beaten down one-sidedly. Later on, after experiencing the 7 Stars incident, he was beaten again by Kaibaman. Even when facing the sacred beasts, he barely won using a near-broken card like Philosopher's Stone. It was only after going through all of that, he finally managed to fight Zane to a draw by the end of the semester. Then again, how strong had Zane become after graduation? Against a pro-duelist even younger than Jaden, Aster Phoenix, he was defeated without even forcing out Aster's real deck. After that, his confidence was completely busted. Until he finally let go and pursued pure victory, he didn't win even a single match. Any pro-duelist could bully him at that point. While defeating the protagonist was thrilling, Hikaru couldn't let his guard down. This world was full of abnormalities, and he had to stay sharp. This was no time for arrogance. The real crisis of this world hadn't even surfaced yet. In the following days, Hikaru noticed that his school life became noticeably smoother. On one hand, Professor Sartor from Yellow Dorm became even more cordial with him, and he even got the opportunity to have free meals in the school cafeteria. On the other hand, the Fusion Club saw a wave of students mimicking his style. But these weren't just the usual students who wanted to spar with or learn from him. Instead, they were legit trying to copy him, attempting to build full fusion decks. That was completely unnecessary. Hikaru only used this type of deck because it was the only one he had and could use. Even so, he had still packed his deck with low-level monsters to make it playable, yet he barely ever drew them thanks to super polymerization. For others to copy his deck style would just make their own lives miserable. Fortunately, it didn't take long for the students to realize that trying to mimic Hikaru was almost impossible. Even if they filled their decks with fusion cards, they couldn't even reach the 40-card minimum. Hikaru simply had far too many fusion cards, and moreover, they lacked enough actual fusion materials. So, pretty soon, the trend died out within the Fusion Club. On the flip side, at the same time, a new rumor began circulating. When the smoke cleared, it turned out, building a full fusion deck was incredibly difficult. Since some had tried and realized the hardships Hikaru must have faced, their admiration for him only grew stronger. He had overcome all these difficulties just to wield this kind of deck. The Academy's representative, the pride of the Fusion Club. Now, even Blue dorm students looked at him with enthusiasm. Well, except for some of the upperclassmen, whose expressions toward him seemed rather odd. It was strange. Based on his achievements, he should at least be considered the first-year representative of the fusion supremacy fanatics, right? So why were the senior students, who were supposed to be more fusion-friendly, looking at him like that? Beyond that, of course, came another classic moment. The night before the exchange duel. Hikaru, do you want to take this card? In the now mostly empty Academy duel arena, Cyrus approached Hikaru eagerly, handing him a card. Steam Gyroid, one of Cyrus's favorite cards. A fusion monster, level 6, machine type with no effect. Hikaru, my Master of Oz is a fusion monster with 4,200 attack points. You want to use it? Chumley recommended his ace monster, the level 9 fusion beast type monster, Master of Oz, boasting a whopping 4,200 ATK and no effect. And how about this? My water dragon. Bastion also jumped in excitedly. Hey, their cards are one thing, but your water dragon isn't even a fusion monster. Hikaru rolled his eyes. Daichi, you're making this difficult for me. Look, chemical reactions can be considered fusion, right? You love alchemy, don't you? Bastion stubbornly insisted, so desperate to be involved he didn't even mind being called the wrong name. To be honest, Hikaru was actually inclined to accept these cards. Aside from the impractical water dragon, the other two had special applications. If nothing else, the Master of Oz's 4,200 ATK was certainly useful, and his deck did have a way to suddenly mutate it into play. But there was still one problem. He was terrified that super polymerization would end up fusing away his own allies' cards. Hikaru, guys, you're all here? At that moment, Jaden entered the duel arena and spotted the group. What are you all up to? Jaden, Cyrus quickly explained. With the duel happening tomorrow, they all wanted to help Hikaru win while also hoping their ace monsters could appear in battle. After all, Hikaru was so good at material-free fusion that their monsters might actually get summoned. Oh, I see. Speaking of which, Hikaru, here, take this card. As if suddenly remembering something, Jaden rummaged in his pocket and pulled out a purple-colored monster card, handing it to Hikaru. Hikaru looked down at the card, his pupils contracting slightly as he took it. Is this Evil Hero Inferno Wing? Avian asked me to give it to you. Jaden grinned, pointing his thumb to the side. Take my power with you and win, Hikaru. In Hikaru's mind, he pictured that cold-faced, black-winged avian and nodded. So this was its dark counterpart split off. That made accepting this card feel much easier. That's so unfair, Jaden. Yeah, seriously, Jaden. Ha ha ha. Jaden scratched the back of his head, then promptly changed the subject. Oh, by the way, on my way here, I saw the North Academy's representative. Did you know? His beard is so long and thick, and he's our age. Beard? That description didn't match Hikaru's memory at all. Wasn't it supposed to be Chaz? He clearly remembered that in the original timeline, the second main rival had gone to the North Academy. What are you talking about, Hikaru? Chaz went to Kaiba Corp for training, remember? Ha! Chapter 26, Fast. Winner, Hikaru. He, looks like our academy has won again this year. Damn it. Just you wait, next year I'll definitely get my revenge. Hikaru stood in the duel arena, still a bit dazed, his eyes filled with confusion. Was it over? By the time he came to his senses, the two academy principals, who had been arguing over Auntie Tomesan, had already finished their quarrel. The final reward for the Duel Academy exchange match, Auntie Tome's kiss, had landed on Principal Shepard's face. Only then did Hikaru recall what had happened. His opponent had been a complete stranger, someone he had no impression of whatsoever, which made him nervous at first. After all, an unknown duelist could be using any kind of deck. If they had something like the Cursed Seal of the Forbidden Spell or a Fusion Restricting Trap, victory wouldn't be guaranteed. But his opponent had simply summoned an Armed Dragon LV3 with 1200 attack points and ended their turn. Not even a single set card? Hikaru patted his face to shake off his daze. His deck contained plenty of next-generation fusion cards, but since he had to find and assemble his own lower-level and extra deck monsters, he never felt like he was overpowering anyone. When dueling well-known characters, he always played cautiously, carefully planning every move. But today, for the first time, he didn't even have to think, he just steamrolled with Future Fusion, over Future Fusion, and similar cards. Even the spectators were annoyed. What the hell was that? Come on, I wanted to see an intense duel like the ones from the past few days. Many students left disappointed, while Jaden and Hikaru's friends sighed in relief and congratulated him. However, ha ha ha. So weak. Is this really the Branch Academy? I told you, the Branch Academy is trash. Hikaru frowned as he noticed some upperclassmen from the Fusion Club mocking the Branch Academy. The Fusion Club's problems were serious. Originally, he thought his opponent would be Chaz Princeton. In the anime, after dueling Jaden and Bastion, Chaz was expelled due to shady behavior. Left with no choice, he went to the North Branch alone and eventually became its king, returning to Duel Academy as its representative. Although Chaz was supposed to be the deuteragonist, he was constantly overshadowed by Zane Truesdale, Aster Phoenix, and Jesse. Still, he was technically Jaden's rival, and at this point in the story, he was on the same level as Jaden. Hikaru figured dueling him would at least let him absorb some good energy. But to his surprise, Chaz had never gone to the North Branch in this world. He pinched the bridge of his nose. Until yesterday, he had assumed his opponent would be Chaz. He never expected that, in this world, Seto Kaiba's obsession with other dimensions had led the Chaz Family Corporation to intervene, investing in Kaiba Corp's various projects. As a result, Chaz had been forced into Kaiba Corp and somehow achieved what his manga counterpart hadn't, becoming Kaiba's disciple. Of course, in the anime, he had always been portrayed as a Kaiba tribute without any real connection. According to Cyrus, after losing to Jaden, Chaz's pride took a huge hit. So, he returned to Kaiba Corp, training seriously with the goal of coming back to Duel Academy for a rematch during midterms. And judging by the timing, that was soon. Hikaru could only wish him luck. As far as he could recall, Chaz almost never beat Jaden, though there was that one time during the Gen X tournament when he managed to win, under rather unusual circumstances. Ha ha ha. Well done, Amagi. Shepard grinned ear to ear, repeatedly praising Hikaru while saying, Professor Growler really taught you well. Yeah, is that so? Growler, standing nearby, was sweating nervously. Oh, right. Hikaru, this is the stable dimension coordinate the North Academy discovered. The principal cheerfully took out a card and handed it to Hikaru, instructing him to keep it safe. Hikaru took the card. It only had an image, a blurry three-dimensional cube. He could only sigh in admiration. As expected of the Yu-Gi-Oh! World, even spacetime coordinates could be marked on a card. Next, we'll have Yellow Dorm. Principal. Just as the principal was beaming, a voice interrupted him. And you are? Principal Shepard, instead of getting annoyed, looked curiously at the student. Principal, I am Kanem Shinran, a third year from the Fusion Club. Fusion Club. Principal Shepard furrowed his brows slightly. Now that he thought about it, why hadn't Professor Akaba come to watch the match, despite Fusion Club students being the ones representing the academy? To be honest, he didn't actually know much about Leo Akaba. All he knew was that Akaba was personally appointed by the council, so much so that even as principal, he could hardly give him orders. In past years, aside from annual exams, he had never even seen Leo Akaba. So when Akaba recommended a student as a representative this time, Shepard thought maybe he was finally ready to socialize with the other professors. Turns out, he was just as reclusive as ever. Principal, the professor says that for members of the Fusion Club, being chosen as representatives and defeating the North Academy isn't just an honor for Amagi but for the entire club. Kanen Shinrin continued, his expression unreadable. A student who has achieved such merit shouldn't just receive academic credits but also recognition from the Fusion Club. That way, all students will feel more motivated to study and duel with enthusiasm. Professor Akaba actually thinks that way? The principal looked surprised but pleased. Standing to the side, Hikaru rolled his eyes. No wonder you didn't do anything when Professor Growler was making a mess in the early part of the original series. You really are too kind, Principal. But he understood, this was clearly aimed at him. Our Fusion Club also has a dimensional gate. There's no need to waste Yellow Dorm's monthly energy quota. We can use our own gate to send Hikaru instead. This way, in the future, he can still use Yellow Dorm's gate to travel to other dimensions. How thoughtful, Professor Akaba. Principal Shepard nodded continuously before turning to Hikaru. Well, Amagi, what do you think? Of course, I'm fine with it. Hikaru answered without hesitation. He had never been able to figure out what that bald guy was up to, and now was the perfect opportunity. That is, after all, an unknown dimension. Although the North Academy has guaranteed its safety, we can't let our guard down completely. Principal Shepard didn't approve the plan immediately. Instead, he continued, let's follow tradition, 2 people in a team. One will explore, and the other will be responsible for safety. That way, if necessary, they can use emergency equipment to retreat. The Fusion Club student hesitated briefly but eventually nodded in agreement. Alright then, Amagi, do you have any friends you'd like to recommend? The principal had barely finished speaking when several students who had been eavesdropping immediately stood up. Among them, besides Fusion Club members drawn in by Hikaru's dueling, Jaden and Cyrus raised their hands instantly, waving to get his attention. If it's for safety, then can I ask if Professor Growler can go? Sweet mother of Pharaoh. Me. The professor yelped, pointing at himself. But when he noticed the principal's skeptical gaze, he immediately straightened up, putting on a serious, dignified expression. His face grew solemn as he adopted the demeanor of a great master, nodding. Don't worry, Principal. I will absolutely ensure Amagi's safety. Chapter 27, Growler, so terrifying? The principal personally led Hikaru and Professor Growler, following the Fusion Club students to the top floor. Upon seeing Leo Akaba, he greeted him warmly. Faced with his direct superior, Leo Akaba remained expressionless, but inwardly, he was far from calm. Growler? That old fossil. Outwardly, his face was unreadable, but inside, emotions churned. Having his own grand plan, he had accepted the Duel Academy chairman's invitation, becoming a professor and proceeding exactly as planned. To him, it was effortless. After all, Duel Academy students were easy to deceive. The professors were engrossed in their own dueling philosophies, and Principal Shepard, famously kind, was easily swayed by his teachers. In a place like this, executing his plan was as easy as flipping his hand. But he never expected this. His eyes narrowed as he studied the ridiculous-looking old man, sweating nervously and wiping his forehead. Velian Growler. Stingy, picky, petty, vain, cowardly, obsessed with appearances. Akaba had never considered him worth his attention. A so-called legendary duelist? Was this really all he amounted to? From what Akaba had heard, during the entrance exams, Growler's student had lost to a mere Yellow Dorm freshman while using his own deck. And yet, this man dared to be mentioned in the same breath as him? So it was all just a facade. Not only had Growler arranged for his disciple to stir up trouble in the Fusion Club, but the moment he realized Akaba intended to move against the disciple, he had rushed here himself. Oof. A legendary duelist indeed. However, it won't be that easy. Akaba pondered briefly, a new idea forming. Originally, his plan was simple: throw Hikaru into that chaotic dimension, leave him there for 2 or 3 days, and then send someone to rescue him. By then, Hikaru would have been unconscious for at least half a year, his influence in the Fusion Club gone. But now that Growler had involved the principal and come in person, he must be using this as an opportunity to investigate the Fusion Club's secrets. Like hell, I'll let you get away with that. Akaba slowly turned his gaze toward Hikaru. Hikaru, background unknown, parents untraceable. He had used a haphazard fusion deck in the entrance exams, achieving only average results. Yet now, he had suddenly become the Academy's first-year representative. Someone had to be backing him. Akaba scrutinized him before speaking insincerely. Amagi, congratulations on winning the exchange match. The Fusion Club is proud of you. Roughly 175 centimeters, not particularly tall, but among first years, he was on the taller side. Handsome, his looks were in an entirely different league. Maybe that was part of Growler's scheme, choosing a good-looking disciple so no one would associate them. His attire was plain, with little thought put into it. The only striking detail was the accessory around his neck. A seemingly opaque card case? About half a centimeter thick, with what looked like a sealed card inside. He couldn't see what card it was. At first glance, the boy seemed unremarkable, but the more Akaba looked, the stranger he felt. I almost fell for your trick. With a plan forming, Akaba turned to the nearby Fusion Club instructor. The instructor nodded and then addressed Hikaru and Growler. Amagi, Professor Growler, please come this way. We'll begin the teleportation now. Why yes. Growler was visibly nervous. Timid and averse to trouble, he had never actually used a dimensional gate before, despite holding authority second only to the principal. Now, about to be teleported, his legs trembled, throwing off his steps. This only made Akaba even warier. What a deep act. Just to maintain his disguise in front of so many students, he was willing to go this far? Hikaru, on the other hand, remained calm. He had already prepared for the worst-case scenario. If Leo Akaba truly abandoned all shame, he might throw him into another dimension without hesitation. Who knew how many years it would take to return? That's why he had asked the principal if he could bring a professor along. According to the principal, professors had access to a device that let them teleport back instantly. No matter what Akaba schemed, there would be a way to return. But now that he was here, it seemed there was nothing to worry about. Though Akaba was clearly against him, he wouldn't act in front of the principal. Instead, he put on a professional demeanor. He even went as far as to compliment him. Someone unaware might actually think Leo Akaba was just a strict but well-meaning professor. The Fusion Club's dimensional gate was far newer than the one in Red Dorm. Or rather, they weren't even from the same technological era. As a brilliant scientist with extraordinary research capabilities, Leo Akaba improved Kaiba Corp's dimensional gate technology, earning a special gift from the company. Naturally, this machine was far superior to Red Dorm's outdated model. Not only could it teleport to precise locations, but its shielding was stronger, keeping portals open longer and more stable. Additionally, energy generated from duels wouldn't dissipate as easily, making negotiations with interdimensional spirits much smoother. The supervising instructor took the North Academy card from Hikaru and inserted it into the machine's control panel. The dimensional gate spun rapidly, a swirling purple vortex forming, revealing a vague image. The machine could only display a rough silhouette, a pitch-black figure, likely a surviving spirit from that dimension, but even this was leagues ahead of Red Dorm's outdated tech. A monster in a wizard's hat, holding a staff, draped in a large robe, with flames surrounding it. Likely a spellcaster type. It matches North Academy's description, the principal noted. Then, please. The instructor gestured toward them. Hikaru took a deep breath and stepped forward. Seeing this, Growler quickly mustered his courage and moved to stand directly before the portal. Under the glow of purple light, the two became transparent, slowly departing from this dimension. Leo Akaba's lips curled into a smirk. Got you, Growler. You never expected I had already planted a card inside the dimensional gate, did you? Even if I couldn't modify the teleportation coordinates as planned, as long as I release the darkness I obtained from that dimension into this one, it will be enough to hinder Hikaru. Chapter 28, Attack. When Hikaru returned to his senses, his feet were already on solid ground. The air was thick with gunpowder's scent and an odd, indescribable smell. The sky was oppressively low, seemingly devoid of a sun, with only faint flickers of firelight illuminating this world. Everywhere he looked, there were crumbling ruins, and the world felt as closed off as a narrow box. This was Hikaru's first time in a true broken dimension. Seeing the devastation around him, he felt a little uncomfortable. After all, the world itself felt suffocatingly low. Mamma mia! Professor Growler had just landed when he seemed to step on something. Letting out a terrified shriek, he flailed wildly, grabbing onto anything nearby and clinging for dear life while screaming. "Professor, that's a bone you're holding." Aha! Another round of chaos ensued. "What's with all the noise? You're so damn annoying." Growler's increasingly terrified screams seemed to finally provoke the locals of this place. A furious voice roared in frustration, "Who the hell are you? Screaming like that, can't you see I'm busy?" Following the voice, they saw a bonfire flickering with an eerie glow. A massive cauldron sat atop it, and a shadowy figure was stirring something inside with frantic movements. Professor Growler shouted in horror as if he had just seen a ghost. "Ha! Humans?" The shadowy figure finally noticed the two of them, momentarily pausing its movements before grumbling again, "Didn't I say not to bother me unless you can solve my problem? Can't you people lease wait, what? Amagi, watch out." Just as the spirit began speaking, Flame Swordsman suddenly materialized at Hikaru's side, his searing flames illuminating the entire world. It was only then that everyone realized a massive, pitch-black entity was rushing toward them. Seeing the danger, Dark Flare Knight also burst forth, drawing his weapon. The two spirits fought fiercely, knocking away the dark mass. However, the others were not as fortunate. Amid the screams and panic, Professor Growler wailed in terror. He tried his best to dodge, but one of the fragments struck his head, sending him flying backward before he collapsed to the ground, crying out in pain. "Amagi! Run!" Just before losing consciousness, he hurled the object he had been clutching tightly toward Hikaru. "Aya! My stove!" Meanwhile, the unknown spirit also wailed. The black mass had struck his cauldron, shattering it completely. The contents, strange green and purple substances, spilled across the ground, clearly rendered useless. Professor! Hikaru had never expected such a sudden crisis the moment they arrived. He caught the emergency escape device, but he still hadn't fully grasped the situation. "You're not leaving until you compensate me for my stove. Amagi, dodge!" Flame Swordsman and Dark Flare Knight both shouted in alarm. They saw it, an even larger mass of pitch-black energy, far greater than the previous fragments, was charging straight at Hikaru. Hikaru's expression turned cold. Flame Swordsman rushed in, attempting to push Hikaru out of the way and take the hit himself. But in that instant, Hikaru yanked off the pendant around his neck and held it in front of him. The moment the dark mass collided with the pendant was crushed by the immense energy. However, the card inside remained completely intact. Under the astonished gazes of the spirits, the pitch-black energy melted away like ice cream under the sun, vanishing without a trace. In its place, a cracked card slowly descended from the sky. Hikaru caught it effortlessly. Fragment fusion? A flurry of thoughts raced through Hikaru's mind. What was that? The local spirit witnessing the scene jumped back in fear. What an incredibly powerful card. Is this the hidden strength Amagi has been keeping all this time? Flame Swordsman didn't recognize the card in Hikaru's hands, but he refrained from asking. If Amagi had never placed this card in his deck and instead kept it on his person, then he must have had his reasons. Amagi, your teacher is only unconscious. Meanwhile, Dark Flare Knight had finished checking on Professor Growler and reported back. Hikaru casually stowed away fragment fusion and turned his gaze toward the source of the dark energy. There, within the shadows, a figure was slowly emerging. The world was so dark that Hikaru had been unable to see it clearly all this time. After all, the figure itself seemed to be black, blending perfectly into its surroundings. Hikaru gripped Super Polymerization, lightly flicking the card to disperse some of its heat as he remained on guard. Even though he had just gained a card from the opponent's energy and fended off its attack, it was still an unknown entity that had attacked them without warning and had caused his teacher to fall unconscious. He couldn't let his guard down. On the other side, the unknown spirit raised its staff, and the core mechanism at the tip began spinning wildly before bursting into a brilliant flame, illuminating the entire world. And with that, Hikaru finally saw it clearly. A wizard's hat, a magic staff, a sorcerer's robe. Just from these descriptions alone, one might really mistake him for a spellcaster-type monster. But a closer look immediately revealed something off. His entire body wasn't clad in a mage's attire at all. Instead, it was made of technology. He was reforged warrior, full Metalphos Alcest. How could this be a spellcaster-type monster? A psychic type? Then, what about the other one? Hikaru quickly turned his gaze, only for his pupils to contract. Armor covering his entire body, crystal-laden pauldrons, his entire form shrouded in pitch-black darkness. Even though his body exuded black mist, making him look unnatural and completely darkened, Hikaru wouldn't mistake him for anyone else. This was Gemnite Crystal. Why was Crystal in the same dimension as the Alcest? Weren't they from entirely different worlds? For a moment, Hikaru was utterly confused. Then, it hit him. It must be that damn Egghead's doing. That Egghead had previously given Ryu a Gemnite card. Everything suddenly clicked. Krarhar. Gemnite let out a furious roar, the black mist around him surging wildly. Although he seemed to have lost all reason and was seething with aggression, he didn't dare rush toward Hikaru. His instincts were screaming at him that Hikaru held a terrifying power he could not contend with. Wah! Alcest yelped in fright. What's going on? Were these monsters sent to kill me? I just wanted to find a quiet place to experiment. He still hadn't figured out the situation. Originally, Alcest had planned to quickly collect his materials while the fire was still burning. But upon seeing this, he immediately shouted. Hey! That human over there! Get rid of him for me, and I'll follow you out of here. Upon hearing those words, Hikaru's eyes lit up. He flipped over, landing beside Professor Growler. Without hesitation, he reached into the professor's dual disc, pulled out his deck, and swiftly spread it open. After quickly picking out a single monster card, he decisively inserted it into his own deck. Then, without hesitation, he activated his dual disc, facing the Gemnite head-on. Click-clack. The dual disc automatically unfolded. Don't call me that human over there. My name is Hikaru. Come on, spirit, let's duel. On the other side, as soon as Hikaru activated his dual disc, Gemnite froze for a brief moment. Then, crack! Crack! The sound of shattering echoed as his left arm fractured, black crystals bursting forth before reforming into a dark crystal dual disc. A deck materialized within it. Hikaru smirked. Good. Even without reason, as long as a duel challenge was issued, it would be accepted. That meant, no matter what, as long as they could duel, everything was fine. Gemnites was a fusion deck. And for Hikaru, that meant there was no way he could lose, whether it was the Gemnite series or the Alcest. They were both excellent fusion-related cards. Professor Akaba, I'll gladly accept this gift you've given me. Chapter 29, The Different Dimensions of the Country Alchemist. My turn. Roa. Just as Hikaru was about to use the technique he'd been practicing, I'll secure the first move, the Gemnite crystal, before him wrecked all conventions, simply drawing a card from his deck and howling wildly. Wait, you can do that? Hikaru had to admit, he just learned something new. Seeing his opponent's crazed state, he knew this wasn't entirely intentional. But since the dual disc hadn't flagged it as an illegal move, it meant this method of seizing the first turn was technically allowed. Kra. Crystal revealed a card from his hand, projecting it into the air for all to see. Summoner's Art? Hikaru recognized it, a spell card that allowed the user to add a level 5 or higher normal monster from their deck to their hand. A glow emanated from Crystal's deck. In the sky, a massive, smoke-emitting white gemstone coalesced. With a sharp crack, the card shattered, revealing its true form. Gemnite crystal. He added himself to his hand? Gra! Crystal immediately set 2 cards face down before playing another spell card. Card destruction. Both players had to discard their entire hands and draw the same number of new cards. Hikaru glanced at his hand, rubbing the cards between his fingers before smoothly placing them into his dual discs graveyard. The device ejected 5 new cards, which he drew in one swift motion. Meanwhile, Alcest, now reduced to a spectator, peeked at Hikaru's deck. What the hell? Instant fusion, future fusion, flash fusion, diffusion, even a Metalfoes fusion? Your entire deck isn't just these kinds of cards, is it? He was so baffled he didn't even question why Hikaru had a Metalfoes card. Instead, he clutched his head and screamed, "I'm doomed. I'm dead. Why did I have to run into a duelist fresh on the road to mastery at a time like this? Hey, show some respect." Hikaru pursues the pinnacle of fusion. Flame Swordsman snapped. It's true. But don't judge me by appearances, I'm an alchemist. I know more about fusion than you do, the alchemist shot back. To complete alchemy, you need materials and a process. If your deck is all spell cards, without any materials, how are you supposed to create an alchemical product? Ha! Then watch closely, you backwater alchemist from another dimension. Dark Flare Knight, usually reserved, had a venomous tongue when he chose to speak, leaving the alchemist momentarily speechless. Hikaru wanted to chime in, but his focus remained on his opponent. Since Crystal wasn't speaking, he had to watch closely for any sudden loophole abuse or cheating he might otherwise miss. After using card destruction, Crystal flipped one of his previously set spell cards. Monster Reborn. Hikaru had no objections, any set spell card could be activated on the same turn. As the glow of Monster Reborn filled the battlefield, a black smoke-covered crystalline warrior, identical to the duelist himself, slowly rose from shattered gemstones. Gemnite Crystal, level 7 Earthrock 2450 ATK normal. A powerhouse with 2450 ATK, only 50 points lower than the ace monsters of most protagonists. In this world, taking it down wouldn't be easy. And that wasn't all. On top of the one existing set card, Crystal set another before letting out a final roar, signaling the end of his turn. A frontline with a 2450 ATK monster and 2 unknown back row cards, this kind of opening hand could wipe out a North Academy representative or a second-year senior in no time. Even Jaden himself would struggle to deal with a 2450 ATK monster, just 50 points higher than Thunder Giant, meaning he'd have to rely on Tornado Guy to deal with it. And that's not even considering the spell and trap support. No wonder that Bald Egg wanted to use this to trip me up. My turn, draw. Hikaru looked at his hand and actually felt pretty good. I activate the spell card En Wave. Craft. Just as Hikaru was about to play his spell, Crystal abruptly flipped one of his set cards. Under his thunderous howl, the revealed card was none other than the counter-trap, Solemn Judgment. Oh no, that's a counter-trap that can negate and destroy a spell or trap. The alchemist clutched his head in horror, muttering despairingly, "It's over, it's all over." The fusion cards meant for material setup are gone. Even Instant Fusion, such a powerful card that enables direct fusion summoning, got discarded. We're all doomed. If I'd known this would happen, I wouldn't have argued with my master. I should have just stayed at the base and attended my lessons. And now, look at this. We can't return to our world, we've run into what seems like invisible, flesh-eating zombies, and humans here are useless for help. We're completely screwed. It seemed this poor alchemist had sneaked out alone, gotten stranded in this broken dimension, and had been conducting endless experiments in a desperate attempt to find a way back, only to end up in his current predicament. Snap. Watching his continuous spell get destroyed, Hikaru could only shake his head helplessly. Hey Alcest. Ha? The alchemist instinctively responded upon hearing Hikaru call his name, then blinked in confusion. Wait. How do you know my name? It's just one card being negated. No need to panic. Seeing Hikaru remain as composed as ever, Flame Swordsman and Dark Flare Knight exchanged glances before grinning in unison. This was the master they had sworn to follow. This was the one who wielded them. Fusion is the most noble form of summoning in the world. Don't let your own understanding limit your imagination. It's just one fusion getting negated. There are countless ways to obtain materials. And who says we even need them? Let me show you, then you can follow me out of this dimension without any second thoughts. I activate the effect of Metal Foe's fusion in my graveyard. If this card is in the graveyard, I can shuffle it back into the deck, then draw one card. As the familiar energy of a fusion spell ignited, Alcest momentarily froze. No wonder those two spirits were so loyal to this human, it was not without reason. But talking was cheap. If Hikaru couldn't pull it off, then everything would be over. Next, I activate the normal spell fusion armament. Hikaru revealed a spell card with an illustration of Flame Swordsman and Dark Flare Knight in the background. This card can only be activated once per turn. I can reveal one fusion monster from the extra deck, then special summon one of the fusion materials listed on it from my extra deck or graveyard. A monster special summoned by this effect cannot attack and has its effects negated until the end of the opponent's turn. I reveal Dark Flare Knight from my extra deck. Flame Swordsman, it's your turn to enter the stage. Oh! My lord, my blood is boiling. Flame Swordsman cheered, leaping from the spectator area onto the field, raising his sword as he faced the towering knight before him. Flame Swordsman had no indecision in serving as a stepping stone or as the overworked and sacrificed unit. He brandished his sword excitedly. Of a material-less fusion? Alcest removed his hat, revealing his eyes as he stared at the battlefield. So, do you see it now? Dark Flare smirked. Our master will surpass your imagination. Chapter 30, Duel in the Strongest Form. I set 2 cards and end my turn. Hikaru looked at his hand, mentally calculating his next moves. The discarded cards had altered his original plan, with the biggest factor being he couldn't immediately deal with Crystal this turn. But perhaps it wasn't a bad thing. Based on his calculations with his previous hand and the current one, the new cards in his deck gave him more stability, plus he had already drawn one extra card. It was now Crystal's turn. With a roar, Crystal Normal summoned a monster. A crimson gem split, and from the shards emerged a knight cloaked in dark mist. Gem Knight Tourmaline, Level 4 Earth Thunder 1600 ATK. Crystal pointed toward the opponent, and Gem Knight Crystal leaped forward, charging toward Flame Swordsman. I flip my set card, Salamandra with Chain. This card can be equipped to a fire attribute monster, boosting its ATK by 700 points. Flame Swordsman, 1800-2500. Though Hikaru could have set them face down, it was more efficient to destroy the opponent's monster directly. Rawr arc. Flame Swordsman swapped his large sword for a chain and swung it, knocking Crystal's knight. With a painful scream, the knight was sent flying. Gem Knight Crystal, LP, 3950. Crystal took the hit from the flames, shook his head, and the dark mist surrounding him lightened slightly. But it didn't affect his movements. He turned around and flipped over a set card. Trap card, Fragment Fusion. This was the same card Hikaru had super-fused earlier, so he wasn't surprised. It was a trap card that allowed him to banish a Gem Knight from the graveyard for a fusion summon. Crystal banished Gem Knight Tourmaline on the field and a monster from the first turn that had been discarded, performing a fusion summon. 2 gems appeared on the field, colliding and shattering continuously. Finally, from the rubble emerged a knight with dull colors. A knight cloaked in a cape, wielding massive gauntlets and exuding a fierce aura. Gem Knight Zirconia, Level 8 Earthrock 2900 ATK. Fusion materials, Gem Knight and a rock-type monster. It far surpassed Flame Swordsman in strength. This is it, we can't stop it now. Don't let your knowledge limit your thinking. I activate my trap card, Flame Swords Dance. Hikaru activated the card, unable to suppress a satisfied grin. In truth, this card was one of the most versatile in his deck currently, combining defense, summoning, and sustainability into a fusion. However, since he first used it against Ryu, everyone had been wary of it and prepared for it. The last time he used it, he had only activated its graveyard effect. If a monster is special summoned, I can special summon one Flame Swordsman or a fusion monster mentioning it from my extra deck with level 7 or lower. Then, change a monster on the field to face down defense position. Dark Flare. Yes. Dark Flare Knight charged forward promptly. As he entered the field, dark flames swept across, enveloping the massive knight. The two warriors now stood side by side, creating an imposing image on the field, guarding it, and preventing any harm to Hikaru. Cool. The alchemist finally sighed in awe. Now, when the turn ends, that monster should be destroyed by its own fusion trap. Powerful cards always come with risks. It's over, we've won. Ha! 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 The alchemist jumped in shock, goosebumps rising on his skin. He stared at the dark misty night, Hikaru's opponent, unable to believe what he was seeing. How could he still be smiling? No, how could this already insane guy still have the consciousness to smile? As the battle phase ended, Crystal slowly reached into his hand and pulled out a fusion. The most basic fusion. Normally, the monsters summoned by Fragment Fusion would be destroyed at the end of the turn, but even without his consciousness, Crystal was still a powerful warrior, acting on instinct. He sent Zirconia and Tourmaline to the graveyard, and a knight, with 7 parts identical to him, purple lightning wrapping around him, and wielding a gun shield, slowly descended beneath the thunder. Gem Knight Prism Aura, level 7 Earth Thunder 2450 ATK. Another form of crystal. He laughed wildly, pointing at Flame Swordsman. Flame Swordsman instinctively pointed at himself, still confused about what was happening, when Crystal discarded a card from his hand. Then, a massive surge of electricity slammed down, sending Flame Swordsman flying off the field in an instant. Once per turn, Prism Aura can discard one Gem Knight card from the hand to the graveyard and target one face-up card on the field. That card is destroyed. Hikaru stroked his chin. Even though he's lost his sanity, he can still skip the side effect before it triggers and destroy the field with perfect timing. Pretty impressive. Flame Swordsman, are you alright? I'm fine, my lord. Flame Swordsman's body flickered, becoming somewhat ethereal. It was clear that the destructive effect of dark mist had left him in discomfort. Fortunately, Hikaru hadn't lost any LP, so he was fine. He drew a card, looked at it, and smiled. Right now, he was in his strongest form. He was stronger than when he dueled Jaden. I activate my field spell, Gear Town. Hikaru placed the card on the field zone, and the sound of gears rapidly spinning filled the air, resembling music and creating an unusually pleasant noise. As long as this card is on the field, both players need one less tribute to summon ancient gear monsters. I will now tribute the Dark Flare Knight on the field and summon Ancient Gear Golem. The mechanical gear giant strode out from Gear Town. Wow, it's here! Flame Swordsman, who had been clutching his shoulder in pain, cheered with the Dark Flare Knight, both celebrating. The Dark Flare Knight nodded proudly. His lord summoned Ancient Gear Golem using the Dark Flare Knight, yet it was still incredibly astounding. Now, I activate the spell card, Ancient Gear Fusion. Oh! The two warriors clenched their fists spiritedly, leaving the alchemist completely confused. Seeing his blank expression, they eagerly started explaining the effect to him. When using Ancient Gear Golem on the field as fusion material, any monster from the deck can be used as the fusion material. That's so strong. For an alchemist, materials were everything, and in this closed space, even the materials were obtained from humans. So, even though he didn't understand much about dueling, he knew if he could freely use the alchemic materials from the alchemic base in this dimension, he could easily conduct all sorts of experiments. Amidst the astonishment, Hikaru slammed his hands together to initiate the fusion. I fusion summon, Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. A gigantic mechanical being appeared, its massive form seemingly too large to fit within this narrow, enclosed dimension. Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem, Level 10 Earth Machine 4400 ATK. Hikaru grinned and shouted, Ultimate Golem, attack. Ultimate Gear Strike. Now, I activate the quick play spell, Battle Fusion. When a fusion monster I control battles a monster on your field, that monster's ATK is increased by the ATK of the opponent's monster until the end of the damage step. Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem, ATK, 4,400 6,850. 6,850. The alchemist gaped, shocked to the point of being dazed. As the attack commenced, Hikaru took out Super Fusion and held up the card amidst the thick smoke. Ultimate Golem raised its fist, its eyes glowing red. Its massive fist swung through the air, growing larger as it approached. Prismora, with electric light sparking from it, tried to resist, but in an instant, it was pulverized. In the next moment, Crystal's dark aura surged and directly faced the golem's attack. He was instantly driven into the ground like a nail, his eyes clearing in the process. Just as the dark mist around Crystal seemed about to spill over and escape, a powerful suction pulled it toward Hikaru, who grabbed it in his hands. The card still wasn't fully formed, with only black dotted lines on its surface, suggesting that more dark mist-bound spirits were needed to complete it. But just seeing the few words on it already excited Hikaru. El Shaddai Winda. There was no other possibility, it had to be her. What a bountiful harvest today. That wraps up this part of What If Fusion Deck User in a Different Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Quick reminder. What If Reborn as Gohan in future timeline will be going on hold soon, since we've nearly caught up with the author. So now, I need your help picking the next project for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these 3 fanfics. What if Transmigrated in one piece and becoming a Marine? What if Ichigo awoke his powers to save his mother? What if Transmigrated into a nightmare mode Dragon Ball world? Please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next. I'll take the top pick and start working on that as the series next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.